Thanks very much. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to today's session. I will introduce myself. I'm Tristan, and very excited to share this with Richard, um, who's a friend of mine. I've known him for many years. Richard, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Crawford-Small. I am, what am I? Founder, entrepreneur, creator of Aesthetic Entrepreneurs. I've been in the aesthetics market for quite a few years now, very many varying roles. And I suppose what I specialize in is helping busy medical aesthetic practitioners to become more entrepreneurial and grow and develop their businesses and solve problems, whatever they are.
And Richard is also the founder of a very successful clinic management software called iConsult, which I've personally used and I can say is very good.
I keep forgetting about iConsult.
But
I shouldn't do it. Yeah.
Cool. So for everyone watching, a recorded version of this will be available and we'll post it on the group later for those who can't attend. And this is really the first time we've done this. So we're going to be looking for a lot of engagement from you guys, please. We'll be following the Facebook thread on the Facebook group. And there are no rules today, so you can ask us anything. And I hope that between Richard and I, we can answer most of your questions. The idea is just to really see how we get on with this and see what your burning questions are and see if we can add some value in the next 40 minutes or so.
Absolutely. Are you able to see who's on at the moment, or is that just a privilege I have?
I can't see. Let me have a look. Let's have a look.
Okay. So it's just to welcome everybody. So Afaf, Amanda, we've got Amy Foley, Bobby, Dr. Saeed Abbas, we've got Dr. Amy Hughes, we've got, again, forgive me if I mispronounce your names, apologies, Heba Al-Haug, Iki, hello, how are you? Jordan, Kamala, Kim Booson, Kim D, Lena, Lorraine, Melissa, Omar, Rabia, Sarah, Chanel, Susan, Tara, Tash, Vanessa, and Yvette.
Great group. I know pretty much all of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of our finest students amongst the crowd.
So as Tris said, just if you jump onto the Facebook group, the Level 7 group, and to start popping some questions in there, we'll come around and pick them up. But what's first on the agenda, my friend?
Well, I think let's kick it off with some of the questions that we've received for me and you in advance of the session.
Yeah.
One of the things that we actually receive quite a lot of, and this is one for you, Richard, which is in terms of getting started and getting your brand out there, what would you recommend people start to push out on their various marketing channels, whether that's Instagram or Facebook? What's the content? What content would you recommend?
Okay, it's a very good question. It's always the where do I start? And I think for me, the place to start is to understand. I think there's a great saying: is first you need to understand in order to be understood, and it's looking at what problem is it that you solve. So everybody's got an ideal kind of client in their mind, and even if you've just finished training and you've just gone out there into the marketplace, that first step is you kind of need to sort of understand who it is that in your mind's eye you want to treat, who's your client. And once you understand who that is, then you know where they are. You can start to go and look for them. So, for example, most of us tend to kind of resonate and attract, people like self. So it's, who do you like working with? I like working with, rather, energetic, passionate people who are quite creative. So I've set a series of sort of criteria and ideas about who those people are. So, for example, if you're in your say 20s to 30s, you like working with quite professionals who are driven, quite competitive, quite focused. Once you understand who those are, then you can sort of start looking at what message you can communicate to. So what content you start putting out is, think about, okay, well, what are the problems that particular type of person will have? So is it around, for an example, if it's someone who's mid-career it may be staying at the top of their game. Then maybe they're starting to age, they're starting to feel a little bit self-conscious, starting to feel that perhaps younger people are coming up to them, being a little bit more competitive. So their desire and elements to change is going to be different to someone who's younger. So your communication and your message to them will be slightly different. So once you understand that, then you can start to target them. So, and how you do it, literally social media, Facebook, Instagram, that's 80. I had a conversation today and it was 80% of this person's business is coming through Instagram now, where it used to be the website. What a massive change.
We're seeing that so much now in some of the leading independent clinic brands, and even some brands that are solo practitioners who are doing fantastically well just off of Instagram. And I would say that we're in a very visual field, and Instagram is the best platform right now, not in terms of timing, because that's where social media activity tends to be, but also because it best represents our work and ourselves. And of course, you can do all the Insta stories and everything like that. Something that I'm learning a lot about, because it's not natural to me. And I think a lot of people, a lot of the practitioners that are potentially studying with us will be new to Instagram, because a lot of us in the NHS and in healthcare, we don't need to publicize ourselves for any reason other than just for fun. And so it's often the first time people have used Instagram. And it's clearly one of the most powerful tools we have to find clients. I was speaking with my brother Marcus recently, and he was saying the amount of people that book into his clinic is directly correlated to how engaged he's been on social media. And just a few days just pushing out stories, comments, engaging with people's comments, and also posting on their feed will directly correlate to people booking into their clinic. And I think that warrants like some real training for people, because it's powerful. And a lot of people don't know how to use it properly.
I think it's interesting saying people don't know how to use it properly. I actually think kind of already we do. It's just we think we don't. We change it. So it's only the last couple of months I've really started to dig into social media, because effectively, as you've just sort of said, everything's changed. 80% of the business is now coming through social media. So as a sort of consultant coach, I have to really understand it, and I realised I kind of didn't. But there's a few people I've started listening to, like Seth Godin. There's a book called Tribes that he wrote, which is fantastic. And looking at, well, actually, we already communicate that way. We are very much, as a sort of, as a society driven around kind of connecting to like. We're attracted to like. And once we accept that, it becomes a little bit easier. And social media is effectively that. It's just groups of people, tribes. You've got the L7 Harley Academy tribe. I've got the I Consult Aesthetic Entrepreneurs tribe. And they all have shared characteristics. So we communicate to them as opposed to trying to communicate to everybody. And once you get that, I think social media is literally just a real brilliant mechanism of communicating to more people like that. There's technologies come and go, but ultimately the way we communicate or the message is the same. It's can we be emotional and can we resonate with our people, if you like. And if we can do that, we attract them. If we attract them, we can build relationships. If we build relationships, we can convert those relationships to sales. So, but where people tend to go wrong is try to go for the sell word straight in without actually respecting that there's a relationship that needs to develop.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think another thing that's is crucial there is authenticity, and that's one of the most scary things of all, is to put into the official public record and public domain an authentic expression of yourself. And that's something that I learned. And as soon as I started being a lot more authentic in how I portray myself, in whether that's in meetings or with clients, or whether that's on social media, for example, people want to see the real you, and will connect with that. to tell your story, you have to be authentic. And the fear that a lot of people had, and certainly something that I had and still have to some degree, is fear, fear of actually pushing something out there. That you're always worried about what people think. You're always worried about maybe what your old colleagues think. This is in aesthetics is a really interesting idea, that a lot of the doctors that we see in particular are really worried about what their colleagues think of them. And moving into aesthetics, they feel like they're selling out. They feel like they are ashamed of potentially moving, giving up on the NHS. And a lot of the time I spend on training days coaching doctors, telling them this part of you has to die. this is no longer serving you. And it's a process, a grieving process, often a very uncomfortable process. At the end of it, you find that none of it really mattered at all.
Sorry, I was listening to you. It sounded very rude. I was kind of looking across. I was seeing if we had any questions on the Facebook group. There are no questions on the Facebook group. Give us your questions. This is a Q&A. So jump on there and please fill us out the questions. But yeah, I suppose it's from me not being a medic or having that kind of insight. I think it must be quite interesting, because I'll ask you a question, right? So your change from effectively being a doctor to entrepreneur, businessman. How did you find that? I mean, was that something that did you feel like you were kind of giving up on your medical career, or did you feel like you were basically embracing something that was bigger, better, and more suited to you?
I pretty much lost all my old friends in the process.
Really?
It was a real complete change for me, where I was living the life of, at the time I was an A&E doctor. And it didn't feel right, and something in me always wanted to move into something new. I wanted to create, I wanted to build, and I wanted to have, the key thing for me was autonomy. And that's, I think, why teaching aesthetics made a lot of sense, because I knew that I could resonate with a lot of the people that are moving into aesthetics. It's the same challenge. A lot of people are seeking autonomy. A lot of our students are seeking autonomy, and taking that leap is one of the hardest things all of us have to do. And so when I did it, it was a huge combination of feeling extremely isolated, feeling poor and broke, and feeling lonely. A lot of people feeling misunderstood. But that deep inside you, and I'm sure you'll recognize this as well, Richard. You've got that self-belief, and this is what will get you through that period of time. And you will start to feel like you are finally able to express your authentic self at one point. And that's when things really start falling into place. And the universe aligns itself for you, and your business, your clinic will succeed.
Yeah.
But the people that I know that are successful in aesthetics are the authentic people that harboring no shame about their decisions, and are fully in it, in their hearts. They are living and breathing aesthetics. Yeah. And it doesn't really work to dip your toe in the water in aesthetics. You have to be in it and feel it.
You make a very interesting point. Right, actually, what I've realised is, so to everyone who's watching, at the bottom there is a button that says Q&A. If you click on that, you can ask questions. I get the feeling we'll go where the group is. If you want to ask questions in here, just ask.
We've got a couple of questions on there, Richard.
We've got a couple of questions in there. Yeah, I just literally saw, what's that little do? Click. Okay. Look at this. So, could you see these as well, or do I need to read them?
Yeah, so one from Tash is about social media, and I think that's a good one for you, Richard, about hashtags and followers.
Oh, lovely. So so if you're picking this up later, most followers end up being either other aesthetic practitioners. What would you advise to try and target potential clients instead? Is it by the hashtags we choose? It depends. Partly, short answer is yes, it does, but it also depends on what platform. So and content, and the content that you put out. So the reason you've got a lot of practitioners following you is actually probably because your content's quite good. People are looking and seeing and listening to what you're putting out there. If it's on Instagram, yes, it's very much hashtag driven. If it's on Facebook, it's you're gonna have to sort of start to kind of broaden out a little bit, and maybe a couple of boosted posts or an ad or something like that to find your audience. I need to understand a little bit more about your business, be able to kind of really kind of direct you. But the short answer is, I think, is a combination of things. It's your hashtags, yes, which is great, but also the content that you're putting into it, and the objective of it all. It's, if you want to contact and attract new clients, where are they? Who are they? Again, going back down to what we were talking about earlier, is you're having to turn over, as Tristan sort of said, you're turning over your friend base, if you like. The other aesthetic practitioners, you've got to move them out the way, because it's good being admired by your peers, but your peers don't pay your mortgage. Customers pay your mortgage. So it's, get a bit more of a ruthless focus on the messaging you're putting out there and making sure it attracts clients rather than practitioners. So if you're talking about Botox and injection technique and treatments, you're going to attract practitioners. If you're talking about problems it's going to solve, how that's going to make people feel to a particular marketplace, you're going to attract those people. That makes sense? Look at that. As soon as I put the button there, we've got questions flooding in. So great. This is awesome stuff. Cool.
This is awesome. So Richard, let's just let's tag team it. So I'll pick one that I'll answer, and then you pick one that you'll answer, and then we'll get through them all. Sound good?
Yeah, shoot.
Cool. So question, I'm going to pick a medical one. Let's just see if there's one there that I can talk through.
Oh, look at that. Please, can you talk through revolumization of the mid-face? That'll keep you going for a while.
Oh, that's all day. I'm there all day long. So let's think mid-face. Okay, so we're speaking about an aging patient, rejuvenation patients, and we're going to have signs of volume loss, and that happens from the age of 35 onwards. We start to lose our bony volume first, and then we start using some of our deep fats, and then our superficial fat will start to hypertrophy and start to fold over the deficits. And some of those structures, when you revolumize, will rejuvenate. And so the approach to that, there's a few different ways. You've got Allergan's approach, where they've got the MD codes, which are very good. You've got the approach that I tend to use, which is just following the aging process and reversing the sequence. So in the mid-face masterclass, what we teach is that we start off with the bony volume, and some of the first treatments we'll do is along the zygoma, as we teach on the foundation days and in the mentoring, perhaps a slightly higher volume at the cheek apex, and then taking it laterally. And then I really like to go straight in with maxillary bone revolumization, so piriform fossa, just to support the midface. The midface is very much the foundation of the face. And then we'll target the deep fat, and that's often the deep medial cheek fat, and that's with a cannula. And we would go there under the muscle in the mid-face, and you would feel it pop under the SMAS. And I would target the deep medial cheek fat in a fanning approach with a cannula. All of this using a volumizing filler. And once I've done that, we have a look, see where we're at. Often once you've done the bone and you've done the deep medial fat, you've done most of the job. And then we can start looking at some of the more superficial elements. So we can take the cheek laterally, we can create some lateral vectors in the subcutaneous plane with a cannula. And only then, once we've completed that sequence, can we look towards the nasolabial fold directly. And that's a relatively new way of looking at treating the midface. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we'd have seen a fold and we'd have done a 1 mm filler and we'd have treated that. Whereas now what we're doing is we're really looking at the aging process and reversing that in sequence. And that kind of is a fairly global consensus now, that we will revolumize before we use neuromodulators. And that's my approach to the midface. That's what we teach on the masterclasses. I'm always learning more about this area. But generally, this is a really important tip for anyone that's thinking about doing areas like the tear trough, like the nasolabial folds, even the lips. The midface is the foundation before progressing onto those areas, because you'll get more longevity from your treatments. You'll get a better outcome, because once you've restored volume in the midface, everything else has its framing to get a better outcome. That's the approach. to the mid phase. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bow, man. Take a bow. It sounded good to me.
And any comments on that, please feel free to post away. But I think a lot of this is really, as we expected, Richard, which is around confidence building,
Yep.
career transitioning, and I think that's going to be the majority of our conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few themes I think we can sort of pick up. I mean, the interesting one, I could probably put 2 or 3 of these together, actually. So Amanda talking about before and after, are they a good idea? Yvette's talking about would love to do a live video for more engaging and therefore brings more customers. I drop into that one. And yeah, social media is definitely tricky and daunting for those not used to promoting on it. Confidence. So there is a bit of a theme there in terms of sort of the marketing point of view, which I think I can just pull those little bits together for a minute or two. And actually, I think there's a couple of questions on the Facebook page as well. But I just realised I'm quite dark here as well, aren't I? But if everybody can see me, hopefully that's okay.
You're all good.
All right. Okay. So look, I'm a bit of home truth. Okay. Yes, this is definitely challenging, right? Sticking your face out there and yourself out into the world. Yes, it's going to absolutely rock your world. It's going to mess with your comfort zones. You're going to be sitting there, cold sweats. But this is entrepreneurship at its core. Okay, you guys have decided for some reasons or other that the path that you're on is not the path that you want to be on, and this is the path that you want to get on. This is where you want to go. So that's the decision that you've made. Okay, as grown-ups, and there are 2 ways you can approach this. You can either kind of do it in a half-hearted kind of way, which will get you half-hearted results, or you can just go for it. And it's not for me to tell you which one to do. I can just give you the pros and cons of both approaches. Half-hearted, yes, it's going to be slightly less risky, but on the other hand, you're not going to get the results because you're torn between 2 things. You're trying to be one thing and another. It doesn't really work. If you go full at it, you can be comfortable with 2 things. Is one, not many people have really got their head in, and I'm just talking broadly across medicine and also this industry to a degree as well. There are not many people have really got their head around how social media is actually working. The ones who have are doing quite well. And the reason they've understood it is because they basically just ditched the fear in a sense, and they're doing the Facebook Lives. They're doing, putting themselves out there. Facebook Lives are by far the most engaging way of attracting a new client in social media at the moment. The reason is because it's the way that Facebook have decreed that they want their platform to be used. Live video trumps everything else. So if you do a live vid, it will get pushed to the top of your feed. Your friends will see it. Your friends' friends will see it. Anybody who's kind of connected will go, there it is. And if someone can click, they want to be notified next time you go live, they will be done so. In this sector, not many people, people are starting to do it more and more. Not many people are doing Facebook Lives, and not many of them are doing them particularly well. They're still a bit boring because they're not really talking to their clients. They're talking to practitioners, which is okay, but that's great. But people don't want to hear about, they don't really want to hear about light chain, heavy chain, accessory proteins, they just want to hear about, what they want to know, really being brutally honest, is how they're going to look better than that cow Sharon in accounting at the next Christmas party. That's the reality of it. It's the emotional aspects of it. So if you can connect with that, you will be successful. You will win. The way to do that is to just be yourself. And I don't understand why everyone is so afraid of being themselves. There's only one of you. Everyone else is taken. The joke is, if you can't be yourself unless you can be Batman. So, just take the step and do it. With relation to before and after images, I actually think, yes, before and after images used to be quite a good thing. I mean, I'd be interested to get your input into this, Tris, as well, actually. I think it's become quite dated as a way of communicating. Case study driven, client participation, Facebook Lives with your clients, video with your clients, talking about the journey and the result. I think it's a lot more powerful than sticking a before and after next to each other and throwing it out there.
the problem with before and afters as well is that in these days when everyone is constantly tweaking their own selfies, you just know that they're also tweaking before and afters. There are some very well known and extremely irritating, intrusive Instagram brands that trigger me because I see them and I think, oh my God, I know what you've done. You've taken a photo, you've used much better lighting in the second one, and you've edited it and you've gotten rid of all of the irregularities and create these perfect lips or whatever it is. And so the value of any imagery is definitely less now that even the general public are aware that you can just go on Facetune and you can change images and look, and no one's going to find out. I think the one of the questions here from Tash is from Amanda is the Advertising Standards Authority doesn't or actually what I believe it's not the ASA, I believe it's the it might be it's regarding not representing before and afters as almost incentive to have treatment, and that's a tricky one because obviously everyone's doing it, and there are lots of things that everyone seems to be doing which fly in the face of both guidelines and even advertising standards, and what incentive is there for the good practitioners to play by the rules when everyone else is breaking the rules just to get a market share? And I find that personally very frustrating, and I feel the frustration for everyone else, especially when you've just invested your time and money into becoming a practitioner, and then you realize that one of the most effective marketing channels is technically not allowed, but everyone seems to be doing it. Puts you in a very uncomfortable position, and clearly it seems like everyone tends to side with the idea of posting before and after photos on that. But that's a very difficult one. Richard, I just wanted to talk you through what I speak to our students about in terms of on the foundation day. I'm always asked, how do you get a job? How do you get started? And over time, I've developed a sort of an answer for this that comes in three major parts. So I apologize to anyone that's already heard this. This is generally how I phrase it, and because that's what I was familiar when I got started. So number one is you form a relationship with a venue, perhaps a medi-spa or a spa or whatever it might be, and you rent a room. And within that room, the owner of that place is going to say, okay, from that room I can make X pounds from massages and facials, but if I put an aesthetics practitioner in there, then I can make more per hour. That's the business decision solved for that, for the clinic owner. And then this is how I started, by the way. I did it with I gave my CV to 10 different local beauty spas in my hometown in Nottingham, and got a job there, and that's how I got my experience up. And I received I took about 80% of the revenue, and they took about 20%. It was of the profit. I took the consumables out, and that was generally how I got started. And that's a good place to get started because they start to promote you because they've got a database of customers, and all of a sudden they've got Dr. Tristan visiting once a week, and that's how I got started. Admittedly, I did that way back when it wasn't anywhere near as seemingly as competitive. I don't actually think it's genuinely competitive because of how we can position ourselves differently now. But that was one option. I believe that right now there's probably these salons are inundated with practitioners wanting to work with them. But that's number one, right? Number two is, and this is if you've got a bit more of an appetite for risk and a bit of a higher budget, and maybe you're more business minded, you've got a business plan, you can start your own clinic. You can start your own clinic's brand. You can take a lease out, you can fit it out, you can create a website, and you can invest in that. And then essentially you have to either learn how to market, or you work with an agency or a marketer to help you do that. And that one is the one where I always say this takes time, and it takes, you will be working harder than you are now in the NHS, and you will be making less money for at least a year or two. Please be aware of that. And I tell anyone that because it's just, they have to hear it. And one of my favorite facts is that I know a company in aesthetics, and when people come on their training day, they say this is your first day, first step to becoming a millionaire. And it makes me cringe, because that's obviously setting the exact wrong expectation, attitude you need to have when you're going to be essentially starting a business, which is one of the most stressful and hard things you can do, but one of the most worthwhile things to do. And then option 3 is get employed. And there are many good clinic chains and independent clinics that are looking for qualified good practitioners, and they might pay a commission of 15-20% based on every patient you see. They may have some fairly hefty restrictive covenants that keep you locked in if they're going to invest time in upskilling you even further. And then people look at me and say, well, they've always asked me for at least 2 years experience or to have treated hundreds of patients, and that's the catch-22, right? That's the problem. And about a year ago, when we started having our level 7 graduates come through, there are over 60 of them now. I couldn't have said this, but I can now, and I can say that our graduates are walking into jobs. They're walking into jobs at SKN, at Transform, at courthouse clinics, at independent clinics. They approach us looking for our graduates. I get texts most days asking who have you got that's good. So people that have done all of their shadowing and mentoring sessions and have studied there and completed their questions, submitted their logbooks, passed their OSCE, got the qualification, those people are employable, and those people are getting jobs. And so I would like to think that the level 7 does actually solve that problem of how do I get experience, or how do I position myself as ready to get a job. And I've got plenty of case studies that I can show the group, which we're always trying to get hold of them. So if you have got a good case study, by the way, please let me know. So Richard, what do you think about those 3 as a sort of a way to describe how to get started in terms of business models?
I think you're bang on, to be honest. There are always generally only 3 things you can do. As you say, is kind of, start your own business, you work in someone else's, or you get as effectively a partner, or you get employed. And I completely agree with you. I think I can completely understand how the quality of graduate you get from level 7 will walk into a clinic. I mean, from my point of view, I work pretty much exclusively with a little bit of group number 2, but mainly, the third group who are looking at setting up their own businesses or have gone down that route. And I just want to, if anybody's here's done that or thinking of doing that, I just kind of want to pick up on a point that you said. I'm just going to reinforce it a couple of times, is you are starting a business. So it's wonderful. It's great fun. But you're starting a business. This is the hardest thing you are ever likely to do. So go in it with your eyes open. Yeah, you're good. The streets aren't paved with gold. You are going to have to work really, really hard. You'll get paid no money. You'll get it wrong, because everybody does. You'll run into a problem with a tax man, because everybody does. But you'll learn, and it's just whether or not. And I completely have to look at this is, ask yourself first thing whether you've got the appetite to do it, and stick at it, because otherwise you'll burn a lot of money and you won't get anywhere. But once you come out the other end, once you've done a couple of laps, you'll know how to run a business, you'll know how to manage things, and then the opportunities come. Then it's, if you're in it 2 to 3 years, then you start to kind of like, right, okay, I know what I'm doing now. You can bring other people in, you've got a client base, things will start to move. But it's time. It will take twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as you think, and cost you twice as much money. But that's that's any business. I mean, imagine setting up Harley Academy. As I say, I joke about it quite often, but I always sort of think back to that time me and you sat having a coffee outside. I can't remember where it was, and it was just like both sat there with this cheapest cup of coffee, almost crying, because it was so skin. I'm sick of this, but you keep going, and you have to have a kind of almost a slightly insane amount of self-belief to do this, because there's enough people out there who will tell you that you're crazy to what you're about to do. Imagine you have that from people, when you're leaving medicine and going into this. Imagine there's a lot of people there saying, what are you doing? You're mad. You take that step and then you go and do this and then you go and start another business. But,
it is tough. Exactly. It would all be worthwhile. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that we always find is that our students are concerned about saturation in the markets. And I had a meeting with one of the drug companies recently, and they had some really interesting projections which I think was very encouraging for the training. Because one of the things that I always think about is, okay, so we're doing all this training and that's great, but firstly, what will the world look like? What would society and culture look like if everyone is having fillers and Botox? Sometimes worries me. And the other thing is, we're creating competition for each other. Like, at what point does this get too much? Surely the market can't sustain the hundreds of people that actually want to take this seriously and put in a really solid effort and invest their career in aesthetics. Surely it can't sustain it. And then I was really pleasantly surprised by one of the drug companies, and what they're saying is that, of course, right now we've got this very interesting niche of aesthetic medicine, and it's been this underground celebrity. I think that's becoming a bit more mainstream. It's got the celebrity culture. It's got the the social media going on, and eventually this medical specialty is merging with the enormous market of beauty. And you've got this front between what's medicine and what's beauty. And I always talk about this spectrum. You've got a spectrum that goes and starts with something low intervention, like getting a haircut or going to the gym or wearing makeup, all the way along to skincare, to injectables, to cosmetic surgery. And as you go along that spectrum, we're finding our patients generally are accessing their care, accessing wellness and beauty further along that spectrum. And why is that? It's because of availability. It's because of increased supply. It's because of decreased stigma. It's because of better treatment with better outcomes, and more awareness. And the interesting thing there is that the markets that this drug company was talking about, they're saying that even as it stands, we don't have enough good practitioners able to service the emerging markets that's coming through. And they say that they predict that there's 200 very good practitioners entering aesthetics every month that are potentially remortgaging their houses, or investing in time and in money in their training. And we need more of them. We need more of the people that can actually position themselves as the professional and the experts, and be able to take care of this emerging markets. And it's not slowing down. I'm always thinking, is this going to slow down? And I mean, you've been in this longer than I have, Richard, and you must be thinking, when's the bubble going to burst? And it's not.
I mean, when's the bubble going to burst? I mean, first is absolutely, completely, and utterly agree with those insights, and I think they're consistent with the insights that we've had for 10 years. So I'm quite open about it. So I was before, I was a corporate account manager at Allergan. So if I can remember the data, so 2006 looked at a market analysis, and market size, the addressable market, or the universe, if you like, for women at that time between the ages of 25 and 55, I think, was about 16 million, those who were around that sort of market. Out of that 16 million, you could pretty much discount the vast majority of them because they weren't engaged with injectables. So that kind of dropped down to about 4.5 million for people who were kind of considering having treatment. And the drop between those who are considering, so 4.5 million considering having treatment, to those who physically walked into the clinic, there was about 500,000 at that time in 2006. So 500,000 people out of 4 million actually went in to have treatment. And I ran some data again about 2 years ago just to have a look and see, because no one had done that data set again, to see how much had changed. And it had gone up. I thought, about 750,000, which I found really weird and thought there must be more than that. But then I asked similar questions across fillers. I asked similar questions across laser companies. that the addressable market that we are servicing actually is not that big when you take it as a percentage of the overall addressable market, for reasons that we've already discussed. It's basically lack of trust. I can't find anybody I know can trust. I don't fully understand this market because it is quite a difficult market to navigate if you don't really know what you're doing. Who do I go and see? What outcomes should I expect? How much should I pay? And then obviously you've got the cost argument as well. How do I know I'm getting value for money? So the more of us who can clearly articulate the solution to those three problems, why you should trust me and why you should come and have treatment with me, give me a visible demonstration of what value for money is. What should I expect about all of this, and effectively build a relationship with me, and help me manage the fear, manage the unknown, and the market will grow. And that's exactly what's happening is we've got more people talking about those messages. If we can kind of get our heads away from talking about the negative aspects of the industry and more to the positive aspects of it, that would be great. That would be a really nice thing to see, the sort of the good work that people are doing and positive, treatments. But unfortunately in the UK, just the way the media is, it's driven around negativity. So we're kind of fighting an open battle on that one, but that's why social media again is more powerful. If the more of our good work that we put out, the faster it will grow. So, saturation is a bit of the myth. I mean, I had a really brilliant chat with a very, very good marketer. And he used to say to me about saturation. How many TVs have you got in your house? How many TVs are there in the market at this one moment in time? And yet there's always room for another television set. So, or screen. So it's, don't worry about it, I think. It's just concentrate on what you can. And also the other thing to, people to bear in mind is your market is your local market. You're not really worrying about what's happening. If say you started out in Nottingham, I doubt you're particularly worried about what was going on in Leeds at that particular time. So, it's just focus on what you can control and not what you can't.
Absolutely.
So we've had a few questions bump in actually.
Yeah, what I've done is I've just replied to some of the forward ones that I could reply to with text whilst I was listening to your answer. I'm going to dive into some of those on Facebook. Actually, I've got a couple of long ones. One from Saeed, one from Hiba.
Okay.
So it's from Saeed saying, "How can I keep my skill up to date after doing all of my sessions? As I understand, mentoring days as jobs." Okay, so basically, how do I get work? What can I do to get going until I pass the level 7? I never wanted to start my own business. I would like to work for big clinics like us. Sorry for the long question. Very good to see you with you. Lots of positive energy. So Saeed, yes, great question. And if we had enough work for all of our graduates, we'd love to be able to provide that. On the as a sort of side note, we are looking at scaling out our clinics brand, and one day we would like to be able to hire our graduates to be able to carry out work. Realistically, of course, we aren't there yet. There's a lot to do before then. What I would say is, and this is the honest truth, you need to start practicing. And when I said that I managed to get a job from a spa, that genuinely did take me 20 different locations of asking around, and that's what it takes. If you're not ready to start your own business and you don't want to run a business and you want to get treating, I would say firstly finish your level 7 and ask the clinic chains and the clinics, and even ask us if there's anyone that are looking for practitioners in your area, and perhaps we can help. But the alternative is honestly, you have to find a way to present yourself on paper and in person. Go and knock on some doors and say, I'm a fantastically qualified practitioner, doctor, dentist, nurse, whatever it might be. And these are the reasons why I'm going to make you some money. These are the cases I've done with Harley Academy. I'm fully insured. What do you say? And you do that 20 times and one of them will come back with a yes. It is always a bit of a shock to our are NHS practitioners that are familiar with turning up and there being a list of patients that they're assigned to treat, do your notes and go home. And as a byproduct of that, of course, is the fear of working independently and doing that first toxin injection, which, by the way, you won't know if it's good or not until 2 weeks down the line. That's not a comfortable feeling for your first 5 treatments. That discomfort is just part of the game, and you have to get through that. And obviously, when you're with us, hopefully we can manage all of that, those first few treatments with you. That's just part of it, and I hope that's been helpful, Saeed. It's not an easy one to answer.
I suppose it's a question for you actually that might tie into this is, how long does it take you to kind of get your thing, your kind of, because if you're going somewhere looking for a what the element of differentiation clinically, how long does it take you to find your kind of, this is the bit I like, I enjoy doing it? Because you enjoy something, you become good at it, whether it's temples, lips. How long does it take you to find that?
It's I think the answer to that is that your thing will definitely be one thing very quickly, and then probably once you've done 10 treatments, you might think lips are my thing. I love lips. I'm great at lips. I'm getting good results. And then it's really about your comfort zone that then will expand as you start performing more advanced indications, which, by the way, don't rush into doing. The majority of our clients come in and they're looking for 80% of our clients want the treatments that are not only the safest ones to do, but also the ones that are relatively straightforward to actually deliver. So the majority of our clients want cheeks, essentially mid-face treatments. They want lips. Maybe they want some profile balancing and chins. So all of those are relatively straightforward, relatively safe. And then you might feel some anxiety as to, should I start doing tear troughs? Should I start doing noses? You don't need to. I'm telling you that the majority of your patients will be more than happy to develop your expertise in the more straightforward treatments first. So to answer your question, Richard, your thing will change, and ultimately your thing. I always question practitioners that are positioned as, I am the nose king, right? I am the lip queen. I always think in the background, that's not actually a very good way to position yourself, because what you want to be able to do is look at the whole face and holistically address our patients' concerns, and that ultimately only comes with experience. But I think it's like climbing a ladder, and you latch onto little areas of comfort as you climb along. It will be cheeks, it will be lips. You'll find your groove, and then eventually you'll find that you can start doing one whole area at once. So you might think, okay, like for example, right now, when I'm looking at the lid cheek junction, I'm looking at the eyes, and I'm seeing a tear trough, and I'm thinking, I know I can treat this, but I wouldn't be treating it directly. I would be treating the cheeks, I'd be treating the temple, and then I'd be treating the tear trough. And that's sort of like a whole sentence of aesthetics treatments rather than just a single word, because we're able to actually understand that those work better together than on their own. And that's an area of comfort that will come just with time and experience. What do you think?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Makes an awful lot of sense. It's one of the things, insights that I always ask, because the clinical aspect of it is not a side of the business that I particularly. I understand it, but I don't have the shared experience and shared knowledge. So, you pick people up at different parts in their career. And I definitely agree with you. Sort of like the pigeonholing yourself as you are this or you are that. It can be detrimental, because if you become known for something, then it's great to be specialized, but you are specialized enough by being in aesthetic medicine. You don't have to be subspecialized to the point where, you're just really narrowing down. But then, to be fair, some people do actually make quite a lot of, have a good business by just doing lips. But, I think if you want to grow professionally and personally, you need to do much, much more than that. You can't just sit with one thing.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Sure.
So,
It's one question from Lorraine that I'd quite like to pick on, actually. She said, I started up my own business in December, have had a reasonable amount of clients, I feel, since I started, My question is, now I've exhausted my friends and their friends, what's the best advice to help build client group? I'm in the process of having website built and now social media accounts. So after you've basically rinsed your friends group, you know, it's an interesting one because that's still your core. I wouldn't start to now go, right, okay, I've finished with this group now, I'm going to move on to do something else. That's not the way I'd approach it at all. It's understanding out of that group, who are the ones who, basically you've got a word of mouth network there. You've got referral network now. Who are the ones who can introduce you to different people? Start thinking about who out of that group are the ones that you quite enjoyed treating and you've got resonance with. Again, that word, resonance. And then you can start looking at who else is serving that customer. And then you can sort of start to move out a little bit. Don't just discard them as being, right, I'm done. That's because you'll drop. Stick with them and see if you can get more of them. And I hate to use the phrase, stick your dignity in the back pocket, but it is kind of like that. If your business is growing, you've just still got to kind of move through. Website will take longer to build traffic through. Social media is much, much quicker. Start doing Facebook Lives, all of that sort of stuff. And you'll find quick clients quicker. There we are. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a great answer. So, we'll cross that one off the list. Right. If you haven't done particular treatments on mentoring, such as nasolabial folds, what's the best place to start? So I think that, obviously in your mentoring sessions, try and explore as many treatments as you can within reason. Obviously, we don't do certain treatments for good reasons. But one of the things, if you're comfortable enough to start using cannulas, well within what we can start to do within the mentoring sessions, if you've got a little bit of experience with a cannula, then a nasolabial fold is something that you can definitely do with a bit of online learning, maybe watching one of the videos, and then trying to treat the nasolabial fold. To be honest, I don't do it with a needle anymore. I just use a cannula, and you're in layer 2 of the face here in the subcutaneous fat, entering with the needle here, and then using the cannula, and we're just going to be fanning up the fold, staying just medial to the fold, and that is how I would approach the nasolabial fold. But as I mentioned, that comes at the end of your mid-face treatment, only once we've done the cheeks and the other areas. But I don't see why you couldn't have a go at that yourself, especially if you have used a cannula elsewhere in the face. Then the question around when to do advanced training from the anonymous attendee. Essentially, you don't need specific training to use a cannula. It's not necessarily something that the insurance companies would have an opinion on. You might just want to double check that, just to cover myself there. But if you can get experience during your mentoring, great. If not, then have a go, because cannulas are much more straightforward than you probably think. The TSK ones glide through the subcutaneous fat and stay in that layer. Don't go deep with it with a cannula. Stay just under the skin, and you can do some fantastic treatments in the lower face, and for example, nasolabial folds, marionettes. We do the best masterclass to book onto if you want more direct cannula training is the mid-face masterclass, because we use that for pretty much every indication in the mid-face. Lower face as well, we do cannula treatments along the mandibular line as well. But don't be scared of cannulas, and as soon as you can, move on to cannulas, because it will really help you spread your wings in terms of the treatments you can do, the outcomes you can achieve. And of course, they are a much safer way to approach fillers. And on that note, don't be tempted to use anything thicker than a 25 gauge cannula, thinner than a 25 gauge cannula. You want 25 gauge and below. A 27 gauge cannula can act as a needle, and therefore you don't have those same safety benefits that you would from a 25 gauge and below. So that's on cannulas. Some patients want to have a tear trough. Once I said I don't do it, they prefer to have everything in the same clinic. Do you advise me to do advanced training? That's a great question. So the question is, if I'm not able to deliver on something, have I lost that patience? And a couple of things. Firstly, always stay within your level of experience. And tear troughs for me, you've got to have done at least 100 filler treatments. Pushing 200, I think, is when we should start looking at tear troughs, and that's purely because of getting an appreciation of depth. The anatomy around the eye is extremely complex, and we don't want to be in a position where we're just being a technician and following what people have shown us. We want to understand what we're doing. So I would say only when you're ready, move on to tear troughs. If you've got clients that want certain treatments that you can't deliver, then you can bring your client and we can see them with you, and you can do the treatment under our supervision, or even we can do it, and we would sign that we would not take your client off you, so that client stays with you, and you can bring your client to your training school, and we can actually take care of some of the more complex indications if the patient requests that.
Cool.
Which masterclass would you recommend doing after the mentoring? I would say lips and mid-face and lower face are the entry-level masterclasses, where you will learn in depth a lot about a multitude of techniques and approaches to those areas, different products, and of course using cannulas as well. Okay. Anything for you, Richard, here?
Once I've completed my level 7, would you say I focus on joining a clinic for a job or starting my own brand? I think we kind of covered that one earlier. Actually, it's really down to your appetite for it's really down to your own appetite for this crazy world. If you want to start your own business, that's a fantastic thing to do. But yeah, bear in mind you're starting your own business with all of the things that entail.
Absolutely.
So, cool.
And Heber, I'm sorry for ignoring you this time. You've got this message on Facebook, and you're saying that you have a lovely sort of hierarchy and infrastructure as a surgeon, and you suddenly drop into the private sector, and all of that is lost. And I feel your pain. I understand that, and it's uncomfortable. And we also worry about personal development. We worry about having safety nets and having referral pathways and all of that. And so firstly, thank you for joining our level 7. I think that's probably the most similar structure that you would be comfortable with in any training in aesthetics. Obviously stay part of our community. We're always putting on more events, marketing, business events, and stay in touch with us after the level 7, and we're always here to give you that support that you're looking for. You know, it's not going to run out. I've just been asked by our head of marketing to let you guys know that we actually have a business workshop with Richard and a study day with Marcus coming up, and that will be on the 19th of March. Correct me if I'm wrong. So information will be sent out next week via email for that.
Do you want to meet face to face? Come along to that.
Very good.
Very awesome. I'm just want to jump back to that last question you answered. I'm really interested to understand what it is.
Yeah.
What's the fear? You know, where is this coming from? The uncertainty. Where's it all coming from? Because, you know, I think again, you know, I've been in this sector for a while, and people have managed to succeed, you know, without having this supportive framework that you've got here, and built businesses, you know, effectively without social media. So it's actually, in my sense, you kind of really fortunate that we have these tools at our disposal to help grow the business. The trick is just kind of using them to the best of of our ability and making the most of them. But from what I've seen, you know, the community that we've got, it's incredibly strong, and I think it is an isolating pursuit, running your own business or even being in medical aesthetics. It's something you do on your own. But you've got the L7 group. You know, you feel free to jump in aesthetic entrepreneurs, and we support you from that as well. And don't feel like you're doing this on your own, because you don't have to. There's enough people out there to kind of guide and take you through certain things. To really try and, you know, mitigate some of that fear, if not completely eradicate it. Because it's scary. We know this. It's if you're not a real entrepreneur until you've woken up in the middle of the night sweating about how you're going to pay the mortgage.
If you can afford a mortgage.
If you can afford a mortgage, yeah. Well, you'll get there, and then you'll have that fear again because you're an entrepreneur, so you'll do something else. Push. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think unless there's anything else that sort of popped up, there we go.
I think we should wrap this up. To be honest, mate.
Yeah. Okay. Wrap it up. Two more just popped up. One is it going to an exhibition worthwhile if you're just starting out? It's always worthwhile going in and have a look and seeing what's going down. Just wonder what your objective is. And Omar, does it make a difference to come from a surgical background versus GP? Do you know what? Probably pick that one up on another time.
Yeah, but in short, no. Is the answer to that. But so guys, thanks so much for being part of the community. It's fantastic to share the last hour with you, and thank you very much for Richard for joining me today. We're obviously going to put this on the group afterwards. Any remaining questions, I can pick them up on the group. Okay, have a good evening.
Right, guys, thanks very much. Take care. Thanks very much. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.